This episode is the most personal one I've ever done, so if you will indulge me for a moment, I have a story to tell. Welcome back to the channel. It's great to have you here. If this is your first time with MadPropsAero, thanks so much for stopping in. I think you're going to find this interesting. I know I do. This channel focuses on aviation and aviation-related topics, not specifically about pilots, although Pat and I are pilots, our guests tend to be pilots, and let's face it, pilots are pretty cool, and pilots like to talk about pilots. By the way, this is the perfect time to click that like button and subscribe to the channel. And perhaps you could start thinking about the pithy comment you're going to leave at the end of this video, because I have a feeling you're going to have an opinion about this topic. If you're a pilot, congratulations. You are part of the 1%. Actually, you're part of an even smaller group than the 1%. You see, pilots make up about 0.2% of the overall population in a country of about 250 million people. Mechanics, aircraft mechanics, make up an even smaller group. And if you want to get down to the really, really elite folks, air traffic controllers. In September 2024, the FAA reported they had about 14,000 controllers under their umbrella. So when you get involved in aviation, in almost any part of aviation, you become part of a very small elite group. So welcome to the club. It's worth remembering as we get into this topic, pilots come in all shapes and sizes. They come from every walk of life. They come from every corner of the planet. And that's where we get into a little bit of trouble, because we're all human beings. And that's where the trouble starts. Becoming a pilot takes effort. Anyone who flies knows that. It requires study and practice and continuing education. It instills in us a bit of pride, and it encourages us to get a bit of humility as well. But like sports stars, pilots are susceptible to everything human beings are susceptible to: illness, injury, and the effects of age. We can't get away from that just because we're potentially the coolest people on the planet. Each and every one of us should give at least some thought throughout our flying career to the very unpleasant idea of, when do I call it a day? When do I pull the plug? At what point do I cross over into an area where I don't feel like I'm really on top of my game anymore? And that's an issue we have to seriously consider, not just for our own safety and self-preservation, but also for our passengers and our loved ones. Now, the conditions that might cause us to ground ourselves might be as simple and temporary as excessive fatigue. That's a real challenge for pilots. Being excessively tired does affect our thought process. It does affect our reaction time. And if you're really tired, pushing yourself to go flying is not a great idea. It's also possible that the health challenge we're facing is as serious as cardiovascular disease. And there is a whole boatload of possibilities between fatigue and cardiovascular disease. We all have to be on guard for where are we in that big long number line of risk assessment. It's not something we really like to think about a lot, but the reality is, as we age, we degrade. That's true of all of us. Our eyesight may get worse. I didn't always wear glasses, you know. Our blood pressure may rise. There are a whole slew of things that could happen to us over the years that might affect our ability to fly and fly safely. In our head, we might be able to do it, but in real life, can we physically handle it? We may even develop cognitive issues. And I must admit, I have had some elderly students who were beginning to have cognitive issues, and that became the thing that kept them from becoming certificated pilots. Heartbreaking, but it's reality. We have to consider that. And while the FAA has medical standards and does allow pilots now to use certain medications or continue flying after procedures that used to ground us, we still have to think about our health in a very realistic way. And we do have the options now of basic med or flying light sport aircraft with no medical at all. And there is even a subset in the aviation community that flies ultralights, which don't require a certificate. Whatever we choose, however we look at our medical status, We really do have a responsibility to self-certify before every flight, regardless of which method we're using. The medical certificate, basic med, flying as a light sport pilot, flying gliders that never required a medical. We have to look at ourselves critically and establish, at least in our own mind, how healthy am I? Are you doing that before every flight? Are you really doing that? Or are you just going through the motions? Have you considered the prescriptions you might be taking, especially if that's a new prescription and you don't really know how it's going to affect you in flight? Some things may affect you in flight differently than they affect you on the ground. And in the air is a horrible place to find out you're somewhat incapacitated. Is there an ache or a pain or some type of mobility issue that you've been muscling through, just powering through for the last few weeks or months or years? At what point do we look at that and say, maybe this is a problem? I don't want it to be, but maybe it is. There are always exceptions, of course, just like Tom Brady playing competitive football in the NFL for years past the point where his peers had stepped to the sidelines. There are pilots who, amazingly enough, continue flying. They're healthy, they're mentally sharp for years past where a normal person might find that to be the case. Tom Davis of Crystal River, Florida was exactly such a case. Tom was a Navy pilot who flew for years. He flew in the Korean War, he flew in Vietnam. He flew more aircraft types than I can even name. He was a remarkable guy. When he left the military, he started the MadPropsAero group in Crystal River, Florida, and he became a truly transformative individual. He was the power behind getting paved runways in Crystal River, replacing the dirt and grass runways they had before. Buildings were upgraded. Tom started that MadPropsAero group and developed a flight school that brought in students from more than 40 countries all around the world. And his efforts didn't go unnoticed, to the point that Crystal River Airport was renamed Captain Tom Davis Field in his honor, in his lifetime. Tom and I went to lunch years ago in Crystal River. I flew up, met him at the airport. We went out to lunch and we had a wonderful time. And on the way back to the office, he mentioned in the car that he had just signed a new 20-year lease on the offices in flight school. And I turned to him and I said, Tom, how old are you? And he said, 85. Like it was the most normal thing in the world. Well, Tom continued flying, and Tom continued instructing, and Tom continued running that business until he was 90 years old when he finally put it up for sale. He truly was an exception, but he was the exception. Most of us aren't going to be flying until we're 90 years old, and it's up to us to recognize that. Not everyone gets as long a run as Tom did. That's probably true for you. It's definitely true for me. A while back, I wrote a column for General Aviation News. It's a wonderful publication. I hope you're a subscriber to that too. I've been writing a column for them for over 14 years. But this one was very personal, just like this video. And I disclosed in that I have grounded myself recently. I have a health issue that's not a super serious thing on the ground. It's perfectly fine, but it does affect my ability, in my opinion, to fly safely and responsibly. So I no longer fly in the left seat. I could fly in the right seat. I could fly gliders if I chose to, but as I say, I don't think I should be in the PIC position, so I don't. That's my decision, and I think that's the safe way to go. I'm nothing special. I'm just a guy who learned to fly and has had a remarkable career in general aviation, but I'm still a human being. As I said, I'm still relatively susceptible to the things that everybody else is susceptible to. And when I recognize that something's not right and that it's not within my control, at least not right now, okay, let's take a break. Maybe I'll get back to flying from the left seat and being pilot in command, and maybe I won't. Frankly, I'm good with it either way because I was lucky enough to jump into aviation with both feet. It was a career change for me. Came in my late 20s, early 30s, but I jumped in with both feet. I had no idea at 25 years old that I would someday hold 5 FAA certificates, that I've had this incredible career, that I've had so many hours in the air, so many miles over the ground, and met literally thousands of people who just fascinate me because of our common interest in aviation and where we fit into it, whether that's in the cockpit, in the hangar, in the control tower, whatever it is. I have absolutely loved this career. The point is, we're all human beings. We are highly susceptible to fragility, breakability, illness, disease, and we should have the maturity and the self respect to step back when the time comes. Maybe you will, maybe you won't. Maybe you'll fly till you're 85 or 90 as Tom did. Maybe you'll step back in your mid 50s because of some other issue, or maybe you'll get to where I am and just say, for the moment, the safe thing to do is to stop. I'm grounding myself. No tears, no regrets. And by the way, all of this is an excellent argument for why you should get into aviation sooner, when you're young and pliable and healthy and can take a bit of a beating. You know, I've never met a pilot who wished he had put off learning to fly until later, except for those few who soloed on their 16th birthday and got their certificate on their 17th birthday. The vast majority of us wish we had started earlier, and we would have had more years in aviation. Now, as I say, I have no regrets. It has been a fantastic time. But you know, if I was 15 again, I might take a more serious look at getting into aviation with the knowledge that some old guy on YouTube just said, you do time out of this, just like you time out of Major League Baseball and National Football League and the NBA and so many other things. It's not a young man's game, but being young is definitely an advantage. Tom is gone now. He made it to the age of 95 and was sharp as a tack that entire time. I'm so glad I get to know him. And I'm out of the game for the moment, at least in the left seat. I still have my skills. I still have my knowledge base. I still have the ability to go out and interact with pilots and mechanics and air traffic controllers and engineers. I'm really fortunate. I have no idea what the future holds, but then neither do you, and neither does anybody else. All I know is I've made the safe decision for me and my family and my passengers for my condition right now. I hope you'll do the same thing, and I hope you won't let your ego get in the way, and you'll be able to say, you know what? This is the right move for right now. And I don't have to stop flying. I can still fly in the right seat. I can still fly with a safety pilot. I have a lot of options. I just make the decision that I'm not going to be PIC anymore, at least not until I can do that with the level of proficiency and performance that I expect out of myself. I'm okay with that. As a matter of fact, I'm pretty darn happy. Thanks so much for watching. I have absolutely loved having you here. I hope you are getting ready to make that comment down below. Have you ever had to make this decision? Do you know somebody who's had to make this decision? What do you think about my decision? Please leave a comment below, like the video, subscribe, and we'll meet you right back here next time at MadPropsAero.